retailers. Retail is the process of selling consumer goods or services to customers through multiple channels of distribution to earn a profit. Retailers satisfies demand identified through a supply chain. The term retailer is typically applied where a service provider fills the small orders of many individuals who are end users rather than large orders of a small numbers of wholesale, corporate, or government clientele. Shopping generally refers to the act of buying products. Sometimes this is done to obtain final goods, including necessities such as food and clothing. Sometimes it takes place as a recreation activity. Recreation shopping often involves window shopping and browsing. It does not always result in a purchase. Retail markets have existed since ancient times. Archaeological evidence for trade, probably involving barter systems, date back more than 10,000 years. As civilizations grew, barter was replaced with retail trade involving coinage. Selling and buying are thought to have emerged in Asia Minor, modern Turkey, in around the 7th millennium BC. Retailing in India is one of the pillars of its economy and accounts for about 10% of its GDP. The Indian retail market is estimated to be one of the top 5 retail markets in the world by economic values. India is one of the fastest growing retail markets in the world with 1.3 billion people. As per Forrester research in 2020, India's retail sector was estimated at $883 billion, with grocery retail accounting for $600 billion. The market is projected to reach 1.3 billion $1.3 trillion by 2024. India ranked 63 in the World Bank's Doing Business 2020 publication. India ranked 73 in the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development's Business to Consumer B2C E-Commerce Index 2019. India's direct selling industry records sales of US $2.47 billion in 2019, improving its rank to 15 from 19 a year before. Consumer spending in India increased to US $245.16 billion in the third quarter of 2020 from US $192.94 billion in the second quarter of 2020. The country is among the highest in the world in terms of per capita retail store availability. India's retail sector is experiencing exponential growth, with retail development taking place not just in major cities and metros, but also in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. Healthy economic growth, changing demographic profile, increasing disposable income, urbanization, changing consumer tastes and preferences are some of the factors driving growth in the organized retail market in India. India's mom and pop stores sell everything from clothes and footwear to groceries and electronics. Most of India's grocery retails happens at kiranas, small and mid-sized mom and pop outlets, which accounts for. Store owners typically have a strong and regular customer base in their neighborhood, with home delivery and taking orders on phone a common phenomenon. Hundreds of households items are crammed inside wall-to-wall glass or wooden shelves or in the open at such stores. Many outlets are so small and cramped that the customers do not set foot inside. Products are handed over by store staff who stand behind a counter. Many of these shops also offer staples such as pulses, rice, and flours in loose or unbranded form. They typically operate from early morning till late evening. This segment is growing trend in India, with companies like Reliance Industries, led by India's richest man, Mr. Mukesh Ambani, Future Retail, led by Kishore Biani, although now the future of Future Retail is not known because Amazon has already been cleared by the Honorable Supreme Court, but they have again gone for defreezing or not to be attached, not to attach their assets. Let's see what is going to take place in the Honorable Supreme Court. So their future is still hanging. And Avenue Supermarts, D-Mart, Oil, all competing for customers. This segment accounts for about 12 to 15% of consumer goods sales. A long-established store format in the West supermarkets are the polar opposite of kiranas, tidy, well-lit, and with plenty of space for customers with shopping carts to seek out items from neatly stacked shelves themselves. Many supermarkets in built-up residential areas are also spreading in response to the need to cater to urban shoppers buying supplies in smaller volumes on a daily basis rather than a once-a-week drill. Most supermarkets operates during usual business hours and shut in late evening. Indian online grocery market is estimated to exceed sales of about rupees 22,500 crores, that is about 3.19 billion US dollars in 2020, witnessing a significant jump of 76% over the previous year. According to India Ratings and Research India, domestic organized food and grocery retailers are experienced to increase by 10% year on year in financial year 22, with organized retailers and e-commerce likely to benefit from the ongoing demand for essentials. India's population is taking to online retail big way. By 2024, India's e-commerce industry is expected to increase by 84% to US dollar 111, that is 111 billion, driven by mobile shopping, which is projected to grow at 21% annually over the next 4 years. In 2020, the most common payment methods online were digital wallets, 40%, followed by credit cards, 15%, and debit cards, 15%. Online penetration of retail is expected to reach 10.7% by 2024 versus 4.7% in 2019. According to data released by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, India's Consumer Price Index CPI-based retail inflation eased to 4.2% in April 2021, compared with 5.5% in March 2021. Now to discuss about the small retailers versus mega retailers, we have a very, very elite, experienced, knowledgeable, and those who are authority in this field panelists with us. And I would like to invite my first panelist guest. He is Dr. Christopher Abraham. Dr. Christopher Abraham is MSW, MBA, DLL, PhD. He is the certified design thinker from IDEO, Stanford. He is a fellow of Chartered Institute of Marketing, FCIM, UK. He is having 34 years experience in management consulting, marketing and management education in India, Singapore, and the UAE. Currently, he is the CEO and head Dubai campus and senior vice president, SB Jain School of Global Management, a Forbes top 10 economists and FT top 100 ranked business school with campuses in Dubai, Singapore, Mumbai, and Sydney. He is visiting professor at leading universities in Australia, USA, Canada, Singapore, and UK. He earlier headed the executive MBA program of XLRI Jamshedpur in Dubai. His areas of competence are innovation, design thinking, behavioral design, neuroscience of decision making, future of education and technology, science of happiness, leadership, marketing, and strategy. He is 3x TDX and international keynote speaker. He conducted many consulting and executive development assignments for global organizations, including the World Bank, the Executive Council, Government of Dubai, Emirates Airlines, Seva, Government of Sharjah, Armex, DHL, P&G, LG, AW, Rostamani, Nissan Auto, etc. Welcome, Dr. Chris Abraham on our show. Dr. Abraham, you are in Dubai, but you know each and everything what is happening, not only in Dubai, but around the world. And today, especially in India, after this COVID, because Indian retail market is dominated by the small retailers, the kirana shops. But with the entry of big players like Amazon, like Reliance and all others, these people, and due to the COVID, people have preferring for online shopping. So we would like to know about from you the small retailers versus mega retailers. Dr. Chris Abraham, please.
Thank you, Dr. Lal, and thank you very much for this opportunity, and a very warm welcome to everybody listening to us here. I'd like to take a slightly different spin on the topic. Why should it be retail, small retail versus big retail? Is there a way, is there an opportunity to look at retail, small retail and big retail? So we'll park that for the moment and let me give a context to the conversation. Last year, one of the best books that sold on New York Times and other publications was a book by a Dutch professor called Rutger Bregman. Rutger Bregman wrote a fascinating book called Humankind. The book was titled Humankind. And what he argued was that in the entire history of humanity, more than fighting or more than competition, we've been kind to each other. And we have not only been kind to each other, we have cooperated, we have collaborated, and we have contributed to the betterment of the world and the betterment of humanity. In fact, the whole conventional concept, economic concept of competition is now being questioned through anthropological evidence, through computational biology evidence, and through a whole range of research that's happening across neuroscience, behavioral economics, so on and so forth. A few years back, there was another interesting tongue-in-cheek research by a German anthropologist saying survival of the nicest. It's not the survival of the fittest, but the survival of the nicest. And as we progress, you'll find plenty of evidence, research evidence, that the more we come together, the better would be the ultimate output. The capitalistic Chicago School of Economics focus of everything for only the best is now being questioned. So there's a radical awareness about it. Dr. Lal, when he started, spoke about some fascinating statistics of India's largest in terms of the market, the retail market, and of course the Kirana stores. And I want to bring in another dimension. So one is collaboration versus competition. The other one is resilience versus defeat. So in the 1960s and 70s, when the big store or big ticket store became famous, there was questioning, where would the mom and pop stores go? This trend started in the United States and went on to Europe, then other parts of the world, and it's also caught up in places like India. So if you see there carefully, and the statistics, I think he gave some fascinating statistics, that there has been a steady growth and not a decline of the Kirana stores, the mom and pop stores. Yes, COVID has posed new challenges. Yes, people are looking for online options for fear of health hazards. So the conventional Kirana store. But again, I want to bring in a very interesting dimension. And all these are very counterintuitive. So I'm going beyond the purview of retail, just to give a perspective. There's another professor called Schumpeter. Some of you may have heard of Schumpeter waves. Now, Schumpeter waves proves that every time there's a catastrophe, you would find a resurgence of economic development. And that resurgence is based on innovation and human ingenuity. So when it's like a cornered cat. So when there's a cornered cat, there's no other choice but to fight back. I would say the Indian Kirana economy or the Indian Kirana ecosystem has bounced back. The statistics are there for all of us to prove. Dr. Lal so beautifully said it. As of now, it's almost about $800 billion plus, right? That's India's retail market. And of this, we are talking about 20 million Kiranas all over India. India is a huge market. And these Kiranas play a very interesting role. Now, if you look at a local Kirana, he knows each one. The neighborhood guys, he knows each one by name. As he said, you pick up the phone and call the guy, and he would tell you what he has. He would also give you local produce, okay, which is not there, probably available in the big ticket, hypermarkets. So you'd get that what you want. He will also do specialized service to get that for you. It could be a country-made medicine, so on and so forth. The second thing he gives you is he gives you credit. So because he knows you, he gives you credit at a short term, maybe 15 days, 30 days. And he's got a clutch of customers with whom he maintains a very close relationship. Now, I'm not saying that model is going to sustain over time. There's another interesting trend that's happened. India has one of the largest mobile penetrations in the world. Every Kirana store guy would probably have one, if not two or three mobile phones. And we are almost covered in terms of access to the internet, which means there's a lot of, let's say, digital transactions that are possible. I want to remind our viewers that during the GST and just before that, the demonetization, when the value of money suddenly became questionable, you found the local, the tender coconut seller accepting Paytm. That was amazing if you look at it. And all of the digital payment. Then we had phone pay, then you had Google Pay, all those things. And I think the local retailer embraced it as much as the big ticket retailers. So here's the thought. Over time, I think there is going to be a kind of collaboration between the small ticket Kirana owners and the big ticket. It's already happening. Many of you may be familiar with it. Amazon's JioMart now says, if we have to reach a larger audience, okay, it's not just about building big, huge hypermarkets, because real estate in big cities is going to be another big challenge. So is there a way we can penetrate? And Mr. Mukesh Ambani, being the visionary that he is, 2018 said that the future will be, not only we build these big ticket, hypermarkets and malls, but we will also have, distribution through the Kiranas. So how does that happen? It happens through an alliance between JioMart and these millions of Kirana, shopkeepers. So what they would do is they become a distributor. Customer orders online, it's redistributed through the Kirana store. There's a margin available for the Kirana guy, and there's a margin available for the big ticket retailers. So I think the way forward, and that's the reason why I said the concept of social and economic collaboration is now becoming, and cooperation is becoming increasingly relevant. There is another online platform called Udaan. I'm sure many of us are familiar with it. Udaan again does something very similar. And in Bangalore, you have something called Jumbo Tape, which, by the way, in very short time has started making good money. They've already started making profits. So I think the way forward will be the collaboration and cooperation between Kiranas and the big people. The world has to come together. And here's another interesting opportunity, which I foresee in terms of the youngsters, unicorns and sunicorns, as we call them, who have a great opportunity to create, for want of a better word, I'm going to call it a cooperative online platform. What do I mean by that? Can we aggregate the millions of Kirana shopkeepers and get them onto an online platform where people could order wherever we want, but then the local guy does the delivery for us? Could be a fascinating opportunity for youngsters looking for, an opportunity in this space. And I think the future is going to be a future of collaboration and cooperation, a future that merges technology with traditions, and a future that also has opportunities for everybody in the life. Of course, if you're not innovative, as somebody rightly said, innovate or perish. So innovation has to be there, and acceptance. And I think part of it is also a responsibility of forums and cooperators, and of course, associations. So if we can get this message out, that we don't need to kill each other or compete with each other to survive, but we can collaborate and cooperate with each other, not just to survive, but to thrive, I think we would create an amazing ecosystem which can benefit everybody. And I believe the future is brighter because consumption is part and parcel of humanity. And the question is, how do you consume? Do you consume it from the big or the small? It doesn't matter. As long as they satisfy my needs, as long as they fulfill my requirements, as long as they fulfill my expectations, I think the game is on. And I foresee a future where there'll be more and more of this happening. And interestingly, that I think would be the future of retail.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chris Abraham, for giving your very, very informative views about the Kirana, or I will say the small player retailers, as well as versus the big player retailers. What I would just like to highlight few of things which he has said. He mentioned about the humankind, the survival of the nicest, not the survival of the fittest. But he means to say that wherever there's a crisis, the resurgence of innovative comes out. And he mentioned about the collaboration, not the competition. He says the time is now for collaboration with not the competition. He has mentioned about how the Kirana stores are giving personalized services with the credit facilities, etc. But still, people now, because people are going for new and new things, the demand is so high. So he mentioned about the GeoMart, how the Reliance, Mr. Mukesh Ambani, he has foreseen in 2018, and he says the future is that we will come out with a GeoMart with the Kirana stores that you can order online, and the local guy from the Kirana store will deliver the things. So he says this is the future. This is happening, already started happening in a big way, and this is the future. So there is no competition. They are rather complementing each other, they are collaborating, and that is what is required today. And he even urged the youngsters that they should come out with a platforms of which he termed as a cooperative Kirana platforms, where the people can order from anywhere of the Kirana, whichever they like. Suppose they want pulses from a particular shop and they want the vegetables from other shops, they can put it there, and that the person will deliver. A local person or some delivery man can deliver. So they will become like an aggregator, what we are seeing in the field of food supply, even the caps, etc., etc. Thank you very much, Dr. Chris Abraham. I know that you have to rush, and that you are very particular about time. That is very, very important. Thank you very much for giving your very, very good opening remarks.
And wish you the best for the conference.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and he is Professor Piyush Kumar Sinha. Professor Piyush Kumar Sinha is the Director of CRI Advisory and Research. He has 40 years of advisory research and training, as well as managerial experience in retailing, e-commerce, marketing, sales, service, and business strategy for B2C and B2B companies. He has been a professor at IIMA, IIMB, XIMB, and Dean of MICA and Marketing Head at Rasna and Gujarat Gas. He serves on the boards of companies including Infibeam, Jade Blue, Ujas, and Gujarat Gas. Welcome, Professor Piyush Kumar Sinha on our show. Professor Piyush Kumar Sinha, you have heard what Dr. Chris Abraham has mentioned. And his mantra is not the competition, but the collaboration. But we would like to know your views now on the small retailers versus mega retailers. Professor Piyush Kumar Sinha, please.
Thank you, Dr. Goel, and it was very nice hearing Dr. Chris, because he's, what he was saying makes huge sense to all of us. That's something which is there, and I'm going to talk on the similar lines, because that's what seems to be the what is written on the wall. But let me, if you allow me to share, is it okay to share a slide here?
No, not possible, Professor Sinha, because it's a live telecast.
Okay.
So
it's very interesting that in 2015 I wrote a paper. Right, it was published in 2015, so it must have been written in 2014 or something, which said that online and Kirana would be the most formidable combination in retailing. Back in 2013-14 is what we had discussed. I didn't know that at that time. I didn't know that things would happen so fast. It was so fast forward, primarily due to COVID, that people would realize the importance of online, realize the importance of the small Kirana. Online, everybody is talking about. Realize the importance of small stores. And Kirana is the acronym, or Kirana is the metaphor that we use to talk about when we talk about small stores. So it's not just grocery, all forms of products which are being sold through small stores is what we are discussing here. At this point in time, I'll bring out a point of that, while we all say that crisis brings innovation, but actually it is a fear which brings innovation. And it is the realization that the what you are taking on is not a David, but is actually a very, very big Goliath, which constitutes of tiny Goliaths. And therefore, if you are thinking of all those companies which thought of taking over kiranas, I'm talking of India and the emerging world. Other countries like Western Europe, North America, they have already evolved to large stores. But whereas the large format stores have about 65% market share, online would have about 12 to 13% market share. But all other countries, besides these three, Western Europe, North America, and maybe Japan, part Thailand a little bit, but all the countries across the world, the large format retailers do not have share of in excess of 20%, which means 80%, up to 80% of the market is still with small stores. And if you look at the classification called independents, which is at any store which is about 5-10 stores chain, then the share of large format retailer still goes down. So the fact of the matter is that small stores are going to be there. They have been there, they will be there, and they're going to be there for ages, right? Not because they're small, simply because they deliver value to the customers, which is phenomenal, right, as compared to many others. And which is what my take on that paper was, that when we look at the retail formats, different formats, which is large format stores, small format stores, supermarkets, department stores, online, whatever nomenclature that we use, they seem to be selling the same product, but actually their business model is very different. Each one of them come with a very, very different business model. And when you compare them, you realize that while the core of retail remains what it is, which is availability, accessibility, affordability, and affinity. These are the four basic drivers of retail business. The way they play out in the different formats is very different. And the whole process of value appropriation and value creation or capture, in the sense that, business is all about value creation and value capture. So as a business, you create value for customers, you capture value from the customer. The whole process of value creation is very, very different. I remember I had set up a center for retail back in 2003. And we were all discussing about what was the future of retail in this country. And that was 5-7 years later, there was a huge flow of a lot of companies getting into retail the way they got into it. And everybody was saying what will happen to kiranas. And that's why I did a study using a conjoint analysis to find out what would be the share of each of these retailers. And what came out is that with the best of their performances, modern retail will not go beyond 20%. I'm talking of sometimes in 2001, 2002. That's what consumers said at that time. And even today, it is so right, 20 years on, almost 20 years on, they have not even achieved 10%. So that says a lot about what is the value being added by small stores in this country, or for that matter, any country, whether you take it China, whether you take it Malaysia, whether you take it Eastern Europe, Brazil, everywhere, small stores are the king. What we get carried away is by saying that there seems to be a lot of inefficiency in the traditional way of doing business. Maybe, could be, because they do not keep the record that an organized, quote unquote, an organized player would keep it. But the whole factor of being effective to customers, which is being relevant to customers, is so high that you are, whatever it is, the customer will not leave that. See, what happens is that whenever a new format comes, we all give part of our share to that format. Some of us make it primary, most of us don't. And therefore, until that particular format becomes the primary source of purchase for most of the people, it will not be able to really affect the market very significantly. So if I look at even online in India particularly, or a country like India, I look at online, it works in patches. The advantage of online, it has got huge reach. What reach means consumer can reach you. Can you reach them? Yes, you can, but at what cost is the question that comes. And what is very clear that The business model there is not to make money in as many years as you want, because it's almost 15, 20 years, and most of the B2C e-commerce companies have not made money across the world. Right? And all those people who are getting grocery particularly will never make money in their lifetime. Mark my word, they will not make money in lifetime, because that category itself is fraught with weight and cost ratio, which is not in favor of online, which is in favor of hyper-local retail. And that's what kiranas are. They're very hyper-local. So therefore, if what Dr. Chris said, the same thing happens. People are saying you should do it. The question is, they will have to do it. The large formats will have to partner with small formats. It's not a question of should, because the value that they deliver is so fantastic, right? That an online can never match that value, be it variety to the customer. One can see what we get carried away that online gives you so much search advantage there. You can search whatever you want, right? You can buy whatever you want. Some categories online has done very good. So for example, you can see electronics is getting affected. Smaller stores are getting affected. Shoes categories, smaller categories are getting affected. Lighting and fixtures, smaller stores are getting affected. One must understand where are these coming from. So if you really go deeper into it, wherever the search cost is high for the customer, e-commerce or online works very, very well. But where search cost is not there at all. So for example, if you look at grocery, it's almost a fixated purchase every month. There's hardly any search cost because most of your basket is defined. And the kirana may not be able to stock as much as you want, but gives you service so that your basket is filled. That's something which is there. Having said that, what came out in my research is that basically this kirana will also have to upgrade. We'll have to modernize a little bit, and therefore the upgraded kirana, which is what now you can see, they have morphed. Most of the kiranas, especially in the urban centers, they have morphed into a slightly what I call an upgraded kirana. They will not be as well organized as the modern retail, but they have upgraded themselves, and consumers are not going away from there. So the fact remains is that, as I would go by what Dr. Chris said, it's not about this or this or this versus this. But it's a question of how you need to work together. And here the big brother is not the large format or the online. Big brother is actually the small store. So that fellow controls only about, individually they are very, very small. So I call them as the piranhas. You know? Single individually, they may be very, very small fish. And therefore, if they one spot, we can kill them. Looks like. But together, they can eat the whole whale out. Right? So to a customer, it doesn't matter. To me, it doesn't matter, because if I'm a brand, if I'm looking at experience, yes, fine. I can go to a mall and get an experience. And that's exactly what is happening. Most malls in India have a conversion ratio of 2 to 11%. Right? Whereas the conversion ratios in kirana is up to almost 100%. Right? So the economics is very much in favor of small stores. Barring a few categories, as I said, in fact, new stores have come up. More and more modern stores are coming, more and more small stores are getting added. More and more online comes in. You know what happens? Online creates awareness about the kind of product which can be made available to a market which was not available today because of reach. Now that the online makes it available, people are aware of it. Small stores start stocking it. It's they are very, very amenable, very agile. We must not underestimate them. And therefore, it is never, in fact, as a part of CII retail committee, where we are writing the national retail policy, I've been insisting on saying that, policy has to take into consideration small stores. So for good 2, 3, 4 or 5 years, we just talked about the large format retail and the e-commerce, because they were seen as competition. 2 years ago, last year actually, and COVID pushed all of us to think hard. It did very hard, all of us, that you must take small stores as the mainline store format, not the primary, not the secondary format, right? And Shravan must have experienced it, because that's something which is what is happening in the market. So I would stop here by saying that if you look at the history of retail, no retail format has died. It is still there. You can still find the gypsy way of selling, of retailing. You'll also find that, typically in mountains, what happens that as the snow melts, as the snow gets more snowy, people come down the mountain, right, and settle into the smaller towns there. So they bring whatever they could and sell into those towns and smaller villages. When they go back, right, they take things from here and go up the hills. So that's how retailing used to happen. Of course, with infrastructure, better infrastructure, road and others, things are getting different. But even that form of selling still happens, right? What we call as marketplace is essentially a heart, right? And that format still exists. It's just that it morphs into a mall or a marketplace, right? We're talking about it, right? So no format in the history of retail has died. It's just that the share of that format reduces, right? But one thing which is very clear of all the emerging economies, not just India, small stores are going to stay. You must learn to work with them. It's not about whether I should, is it okay or not, because the economics that they offer of partnering is something which is phenomenal. What we should also note is that if you look at the Western market, it is a wholesale market which got organized first, and then the retail market. That's what happened in the Western markets, Europe and America. But in the emerging markets, India being one of them, is the retail which started getting organized. Now, after 20 years, now it's time for wholesale to get organized. So you can see all the activities, whether it is Jio, whether it is Udaan, right, whether it is Future, they're basically turning into wholesale, getting into wholesale. They started as retailers, yes. But they are realizing that getting into Indian retail through physical or online is a different ball game. It's a different business altogether, right? Where you can actually add value is in the wholesale part of it, the back end of it, which is the distribution, logistics, warehousing, payments, credits, inventory management, and this is where you support the kirana. So you become actually you become the partner from the back, not the partner which is driving them. It's the partner who will support them so that they can become more efficient, and that is how the business model is coming in. So all of us that we are talking about, the new businesses, especially the unicorns like Udaan and others and JioMart, they're basically doing a function of a wholesaler or a distributor. Because they realized, all these people have realized that retail is not an easy cup of tea. It's not like just putting a product in the shop and it will work. You'll also notice that, interestingly, unlike all over the world, India is the only country where the top 5 business houses are in retail. Nowhere in the world large business houses are in the retail. They're all independents, whether it is Walmart's, whether it is Tesco, whether it is Aldi, whether it is Asda, right? Whether it is Jusco, whether it is Family Mart in Japan, they are all independent. They're not conglomerates. India is the only country where you have large business houses who have come into the large retail format. It's very unique to the country. And they have all learned that it's not easy business. The business model, as I said, is different from typical retail business model. And if you ask me frankly, the business model is that retail is a business where you must break even very fast. Shraman would know that, right? Very quickly you must break even. But if you look at the large format retailers, they have not made cash profit for the last 10 years, right? And 10 years later, they have started making cash profit, which means they would have lost 300 to 500 crores every year for 10 years before they can claim that, yes, they're sustainable in the business. Now that's a different way of looking at retail altogether, right? Which is what small retail or typical retail is not about that. And therefore, for a country like India, small store is the king. And in our country, and for that matter, whole of emerging economy, I'm talking of Latin America, I'm talking of Asia, I'm talking of Eastern Europe. Small retailers are the kings. Large retailers must learn to work with them. And which is a tough call because they think they're big, they've got resources, But when it comes to really looking at on the ground level, the customer connect and the hold that they have on the customer is just too strong for the large companies to take away that. Therefore, my take would be that it 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 will actually be small retailer versus the big retailers. Because small retailers as the one who will call the shots, because they are not going away. They are not going away at all. That would be my take on it. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you very much, Professor Piyush Kumar Sinha, for giving your take. And unlike Dr. Chris, he says it's small retailers who are the kings, not the big retailers. And he says the big retailers they have no other option. They have to collaborate. There is no choice in front of them. And he has mentioned that the fear, not the crisis, is for the innovation. He mentioned that the 80% market is still with the small stores. And that's why he says all those big retailers, they have no other option. They have to collaborate with the small shops. They have to see to it that that they have to partner with them with a back office type of work, that they will be supporting from the backside, but the front will be the small retailers. And he has mentioned that there are few things which the big retailers could get the dent in the sales of the small retailers, like electronics or a few electrical shops or the shoes, etc. But he says in general, the small retailers are the king, not the big one. And he says for experience, if you want to go, you can go to a big mall, but there the conversion rate is 10 to 12%, while for the small retailers, it's almost 100%. So those companies who have entered in the big way, they have to lose about 3,000, 4,000 crores in 10 years. Then only they will be able to sustain themselves. Then they can think of the break even. So it is not easy. And we have seen the case of Mr. Kishore Biani, how his rise and fall now, because of the same reason, that the fight. No, it's not a fight. He says that they are dominating. They are the dominant phase, the small retailers, not the big one. Thank you very much, Professor Piyush Sinha, for giving your total different views, because according to you, the small retailers are going to stay forever. They are not going anywhere. The big players have to come to support them if they really want to earn money. But if they are coming in the competition, they are going to lose the money. Thank you very much for giving and enlightening our viewers about this particular fact, because everyone is having that fear in their mind that tomorrow when these big players will come, what will be the future of the small shops? And that is a very big take you have taken, and I'm sure that our viewers now understand that whatsoever the big people will call, the small their mom and pop shops or the nearby neighborhood kirana will stay. Thank you very much, Professor Sinha. Now I would like to invite my next guest, and he's Mr. Shravan Kokru. Mr. Shravan is the Group Head Marketing Treasure India. He is Apple Premium Resellers, Dyson Stores, One Bharat Pharmacy. Mr. Shravan is an innovative and energetic communications professional with 12 years of broad spectrum experience in corporate communications, PR events, branding, marketing, and creative business creation and acceleration strategies. He has a proven track record of enabling brand transformation through digitization of consumer decision journey through implementation of marketing CRM with help of AI and machine learnings. He is known for digital establishment within the brands by synchronizing the business objectives and new age consumer content, adaptability, behavior. His strength lies in media buying, e-commerce, social media, influencer marketing, content marketing, digital PR, online reputation management, and digital innovations. He has worked closely with top management and ensured organizational pitch reaches target audience, utilizing various formal and informal channels of communication. This has resulted in substantial and consistent growth of business of the organizations that he has worked for. His success has largely been due to his inborn and evolved credentials that include multitasking, eye for details, innovative thinking, persuasion and consistent follow-up, effective application of technical tools for analysis, visualization and effects creations, and last but not the least, he puts his skin into the game to achieve results for the company that he works for. Welcome, Mr. Shravan, on our show. Mr. Shravan, you have heard what Dr. Chris Abraham as well as Professor Piyush Kumar Sinha has mentioned. Although their views are not on the same pitch, but one thing is very clear, that the small kiranas are going to stay with the partnership of the big retailers. Only difference is that Dr. Chris feels that the small kiranas have no other option. They have to collaborate, while Professor Piyush Sinha says that big retailers have no other option. They have to collaborate with the small. So these are the two takes which you have heard very clearly. Now, you being in the retail market themselves, both our earlier panelists are the academicians, and they can give the facts and the figures, what they have seen, and they were doing the research, etc. But you being there, having a first-hand experience in the retail, you have your own showrooms. So now we would like to know from you your views on small retailer versus mega retailers. Mr. Shravan Kokoro, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goel. So as far as the views which I have heard from Dr. Chris and Professor Sinha, I think they have elaborately covered the entire retail ecosystem which is prevailing as of now. So for me, I would like to just touch upon the retail ecosystem, predominantly in India. So you see, there are almost four types of formats which are running in India as of now in retail. One is the brand-owned stores. So brands who are directly operating their POS in India. So they are completely owned and governed by the brands. Second concept is the mono brand stores, which is basically a franchising model wherein the franchisee runs and operates the brand on behalf of the brand, but these are totally governed by the brand policies and the guidelines. So to name a few, like we are the one, Imagine Apple Premium Reseller, Dyson Demo, Levi's, Bata. So the concept here is that these are a franchisee model. Then comes the LFR, which is the large format retail like Chroma, Reliance, Vijay Sales, Purvika, etc. And the last one, which is predominantly the oldest form of retail, is the general trade, which we call GT basically in our terminology. So India as an ecosystem is dissected into tier 1, 2, 3, 4. And the key for large organizations or large formats is to penetrate down the tier 2, 3, 4, seeing the kind of economy and the growth India is seeing. So for just to give it a fact to support what I have been saying. So the Trezor story, if you say, Trezor started in 2009 with one store, and it is a story of a journey from $1 million to a $100 million company. Today, we are touching 40 locations in India in a span of a decade. So the concept for the growth is to jump up the ladder, whether it can be a change of format or expansion through new store opening or acquisitions. So the key is there. Plus, a lot of facilities have come up with organizations like Retail Association of India, Mobile Association of India, or people who want to start off their trade business. So Franchise India. So these guys also help to establish new businesses. So the retail sector has now a lot of scope in India with respect to the facilities available now. So for entrepreneurs or people who want to get into this trade or people who are there, a lot of support mechanism is available. And the kind of studies Dr. Chris and Professor Sinha have shared. So it also documents that there is a lot of growth happening, the kind of examples which we are given. So for example, recent example I will give you is the kind of sales which happen on Flipkart, Big Billion or Amazon Prime sale. So these also have a customer to address to and the other formats like GT or monobrand. So you need to identify where your shopper is. So what I believe the best way to market yourself is to identify where your target audience is based and to basically approach them through various marketing activities. So as of now, if I talk about self, we are present in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and seeing the kind of changing diaspora in the Indian retail, we are also expanding in tier 3, tier 4 cities. The kind of customer acceptance for global brands, the kind of growth in GDP. So all this is changing the Indian retail diaspora. And with coming in lot of offers now, for example, cashback offers from various banks or 0% interest EMI schemes, ease of paper finance. So even products which are not so pocket friendly have become pocket friendly. So retail is growing leaps and bounds, and the scope for retail is a lot. So like Professor Sinha had said, so break even as of now in any retail format is 2 to 3 years, which in case of a LFR can be 5 to 6 years also. So nowadays, the ease of doing business, getting into retail is much better, easier than it used to be a decade back. Also, need to understand the retail theory, the pre-COVID era and the post-COVID era. So if I talk about the retail showrooms, so definitely COVID had given a hit to the Indian economy, the retail sector. But right now, what we see, the trend is back. So the kind of footfalls we used to have pre-COVID, we have already started getting those numbers back into the malls, into the high street shops, which we have. And in fact, we see now more serious buyers coming to the stores. Also with the play of e-commerce, rather I should say it now, omni-commerce, the concept which has recently evolved, or the way you can say it hyper local. So one, two examples which I would like to give. So me as a customer went to some of the stores. So the stocking is something, if they do not have the stock available, they make you purchase it online then and there, and it reaches to you via courier. So that omni-commerce thing is the new thing in retail. So omni-commerce is the way forward, and quick delivery because of that is happening. Also, something which we need to understand in the new retail diaspora is how to keep your brand alive, how to have a lot of brand retargeting. So whether you are a small retailer or whether you are a large retailer, to keep the customer in consistent touch with you, to have that brand recall is the prime focus, whether it be a small or a large retailer. So the kind of memorable merchandising you can give to the customers, finding the right partners. So when I say partners, I don't call my agencies as agencies, I call them partners, because for me, the success to be from a small retailer to a large retailer depends largely on the partners you have. So whether you are doing social marketing, whether you are doing outdoor or any sort of brand recall or a marketing activity, you need to depend on your partners, which become a part and parcel of your growth story. Also, what we have seen largely now is the dependency on the lead acquisition platforms. So portfolio platforms like Just Dial, India Mart, Sulekha, these are on a rise. A lot of small traders or GT, they are using these services to get more leads, reach out to the customers. Also, then there is Google Shop, Google Business, Facebook Shop, Instagram Shop. So a lot of tech has got evolved into the retail. So today, a local kirana is also selling on WhatsApp. So I can order milk on WhatsApp. They have made that if I have to order eggs, bread, butter, these can be ordered on a WhatsApp today. Or if I want to get into a pharmacy mode, there are WhatsApp catalogs for buying products. So the ease of doing business is the key to sustain, to grow, and also to have a right mindset amongst your customers. I am a student of Dr. Agarwal, and the way he taught me marketing in 2009. That time, Imagine had only one store and post campus, and today now 12 years. So I recall the examples he used to give us, and also the books we had from Kotler and all what we studied. So industry in these 10 years has changed a lot, but the basic concepts still remain the same. Customers have evolved, brands have evolved, and we need to be where the customer is. That is the key to it. Also,
Yes. Yes, please
yeah,
go ahead. Please go ahead.
also if you see the kind of example which I would like to give you of Trezor only. We started with one store in 2009. In 2021, we are touching 40. We diversified into pharmacy, pharmaceuticals. So this is the key to be there. Then getting ties with multiple brands. So from Apple, we've also moved to Dyson. From electronics, we jumped to pharmaceuticals. So this is the key to sustain, to expand. what I largely perceive is for a customer today, whether he is going to a GT shop or a LFR or a mono brand or a brand store, it all depends on the customer connect. The sales executive standing on the floor, who's greeting the customer, interacting with the customer, maintaining that relationship on behalf of the brand. So as a customer, when I go to that store, whether be it of any brand, any vertical, for me, the brand is the customer experience I get. So for that, the kind of training, the kind of staff behavior, the kind of soft skills, so that resembles in the brand concept. And with Apple, Dyson, or other franchises which we deal in, we have maintained the global standards to maintain and enrich that customer experience. Customers might differ for a certain period, because what happens, loyalty also plays a major role in retail. So whether loyalty becomes discounting or it is the brand loyalness, so more or less we in the ecosystem have survived more than a decade, and we are growing exponentially because of that customer mindshare which we have got. People know, if you are getting into, imagine the kind of experience, the kind of treatment they get, that is class apart. So these are certain key areas which we need to focus while being in retail. The larger aspect of a small retailer or a large retailer, the overall game is same. It is all about the experience. And as far as ease of doing businesses, the larger you grow, it definitely has a impact on your balance sheets, P&Ls. But yes, I believe that Professor Sinha and Dr. Chris have already covered. So I would like to give it more of a customer experience perspective for retail in India. So what I believe is, you are present in any form of format in retail, the basics have to be the same. You need to abide by the rules and guidelines of those basics, and definitely you can survive, you can grow. That's it from my side, Dr. Mr. Lal.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Shravan, for giving your views. And what Mr. Shravan basically says, he has explained about the different formats of the stores, whether it's a company owned or on a franchise base or on general trade, etc., etc. But he says the ease of business, doing business in India is increasing now because of the customer awareness. Footfalls, he mentioned that the footfalls have come out. Even he mentioned in the during the COVID, whatsoever has happened, but now post-COVID time, again we have, according to him, it has become, the footfall has been in the same category, in the same thing what they were seeing pre-COVID time. So he has mentioned even the omni-commerce. He says nowadays even the stores who are big stores, if you have some product which you want to buy, if it is not available, they immediately ask you to give that order and it will be placed, sent to them. And in this, I can also say, because many of the stores in the US and other places, they have started like Walmart, the online system, that whatsoever you want to see there, if you don't want to carry, you just place an online order that will also be delivered at your home. So all those things he has mentioned about the Just Dial and how the Google shops and are now doing. He mentioned the Kirana stores have also upgraded with the WhatsApp groups, where they are taking order even for the eggs or the bread or the milk, etc., even for the pharmaceutical companies, stores also. So he says the overall ease of business is going up. It is not that only the small shops or the big shops, but they all are doing well. There is no competition in one way, if I will summarize this thing, whether it is a big retailer or this thing, because customer wants experience, he is going there. And for those who have really needs, small needs, they are giving order on a WhatsApp for the grocery and etc. Thank you very much, Mr. Shravan, for giving your views. Now, I would like to invite my next guest, and he is Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal is the former Professor of Marketing, Innovation and Management, IIM Lucknow, XLRI Jamshedpur, and California State University, USA. He is President of Indo-Gulf Management Association. He is US Fulbright Fellow Boston, EFMD Fellow Paris, and British Council Fellow London. In 2019, he was ranked among the 251 most fabulous global education leaders. Welcome, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, on our show. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, you have heard what Dr. Chris Abraham, what Professor Piyush Kumar Sinha, and what Mr. Shravan has mentioned. And they all have given their views. One view is very clear, and that is emerging, is that the small kiranas are going to stay, the big retailers are also going to stay. Only the format may be different, whether small kiranas will depend on the big big retailers, or the big retailers will depend on the small retailers. That is a only difference which is emerging out. But what Mr. Shravan says, both are going to be there. They are all are innovating, all are upgrading their technologies. So small will also be there, the big will also be there. So according to him, everything, the marketing, innovative marketing is not only adopted by the big players, but even by the small players also. Now we would like to know from you your views on small retailers versus mega retailers. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, please. Professor Agarwal, please unmute yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Lal, and thank you very much for this opportunity. In your modesty, you always do not include yourself among the people who have given views on that particular topic, because your views always set the tone as well as the context for the theme on that we are discussing today. So I would like to thank you too for the stats as well as the perspectives that you have had. Let me begin myself today with again a very small story, and it's the true story. The true story began 1.5 years ago when I was in a very financially vibrant place of Dubai called Financial Center, where my elder son has a residence, and I used to go and visit him. And behind his apartment building, there was one small store which is run by Keralites of a very, very strong character or very, very hardworking persons. And suddenly I started seeing very soon a major retail store coming up next to that. And the name of that retail store is called, some people call it Carrefour, but the correct pronunciation is Carrefour, which is a French retailer. So they started setting up. And I would like to remind all of our viewers that Carrefour is among the most successful retailers in Dubai, UAE, Middle East, and of course in France, because it is a big chain of branded retail stores. And when the store came, it came with all the bells and whistles and jazz and this and that, because it was backed up with huge resources. Location was good. The decoration was absolutely awesome. It was like two, level, and they also provided many, many more things which this small store was not providing. Now, this small store was the only store for this apartment building, which had about 29 floors, and each floor had about 4 apartments. And there were several other apartment buildings like that also. In other words, that store was catering to about, I would say, 1,000 families in that particular area. And it was having a very thriving business. So when I spoke to him that how are you feeling as a result of this? So he said, sir, very, very bad days have come. I think I will have to fold. I may have to go back to Kerala. So many things he said, which were all in despair and negativity. And just about 15 days ago, when I again went to meet my son, the Carrefour store had folded. It had shuttered. And this particular store, the small store, had become 2 rather than 1. And since we are his customers also, all those things which Dr. Piyush have so beautifully researched and brought this research to the fore of our discussion and also connected with what is happening today, they happen. The value that he provided, those values were unmatchable to be provided in the big retail format. In other words, that these are 2 different formats. 2 different formats have 2 different target segments, two different target, I would say users, and therefore both have a role to play. The first, the mega retailers, they have a role to play in terms of what is known as retail entertainment, retail therapy, retail socialization. They are not functional. They are ornamental also. They are emotional places also where people go and perhaps talk to others or meet others or just have a good time with the family. On the other hand, these small retail stores, they are functional. They provide functional value. All the values that we have heard, that is to say, they know your name, they have your address, they give you credit, they will even send you 1 rupee dirham or 1 dirham, mirchi also. If the lady phones and says, please send me chili, and they will send it, which is not possible into the retail stores of the mega format or the other formats that we are talking about. So therefore, this particular conflict itself to me is not very well set. There is no conflict at all. We are only talking about two formats. In one format is this, and always remember that there is what is known as wheel of retailing. And in this wheel of retailing, which is almost similar to what we had learned in our marketing product life cycle, that new formats will kill or at least make the older formats irrelevant or unattractive, and therefore they will take over. So why these particular stores have not been a part of that? Well, there has been evolution. There has been change. For instance, as very beautifully Shravan mentioned, I believe that these retailers were mostly, why mostly, I would say predominantly indisciplined. Totally, like mom and pop stores, as you had mentioned earlier, which means I will open it when I want, I will close it when I want, I will open it on any day when I want, when there's a marriage, I will close it, or stuff like that. Customers were not used to that kind of thing, especially the modern customers. So these modern customers wanted those particular retailers, the small retailers, but in a different format. Now, there are many ways in which we can format them, but there's a common factor, and that common factor is discipline. So I think what we are seeing today is the emergence of small but disciplined retailers, small but regulated retailers. Regulated is a little bit, negative word, so I was not using that term in that way. I meant it only as small and disciplined retailers. The retailers who are small in terms of size, in terms of merchandise, in terms of many other things, but they are extremely disciplined when it comes to serving the customers, serving the market, or achieving their mission. And those who do not know this little change, which is required of them, they will go disciplined. So what is the meaning of this discipline? Sometimes the discipline is brought by the brands themselves. Why? Because the brands are the big pull for those retailers. And therefore, these retailers have to comply with the things of these retailers. Otherwise, they will lose the big pull like Raymond's or any other name, because they will not get that. Or Titan or any other names. I mean, names are too many, which I don't want to unnecessarily popularize or advertise one brand over another. The second was brought in by the format under which they were started, which I think, again, beautifully Shravan mentioned as franchised retail stores, in which the brand pull, but at the same time, format and also the process was important. The process was in terms of time, in terms of pace, in terms of what to expect, like McDonald's kind of thing, where people became franchise. And today, if you see in India, that those franchise retailers have become bigger than possibly the company. I mean, there is a company in Hyderabad called Varun Beverages, and they came out just a few years ago as their IPO. And today they are bigger than Pepsi in terms of their valuation in India and making money also. So, or similarly, they came also recently with Yum also, with Pizza Huts and others, because they own the piece of that. So clearly what we are seeing here is the emergence of a disciplined retailer rather than indisciplined. I will do it my way. You take it. Oh, I don't need you. Go away. Go to another shopkeeper. Go to another retailer. Those things are gone. So number one point is discipline. Number two, very, very important thing according to me is attitude to the customer. These retailers, for want of knowledge, want of awareness, small retailers, they did not know this simple concept that customer is the king or customer is your wife, you cannot displease. And this is where I think the second change is coming up, that they have understood the value of customer, the value of respecting the customer, the value of retaining the customers. If they have done this particular attitudinal change, I assure you, what example which I told you that the Carrefour will close down, this will also close, others will also close down. And as you very beautifully said in the beginning, that future of future retailing, I think this is exactly what is happening. They had lost that kind of attitude because there is a very, very big bazaar near my place where in Indrapuram or Noida, where I am now today. And it is now becoming a ghost house. And while on the other hand, other retailers, they also went through the same COVID period and they are not facing a similar problem. So which means attitude when you lose is the business you lose. So this is the second point that is, according to me, has. The third is innovation. Totally, I agree with my wonderful friend, Piyush, that it is not the crisis, but it is the fear of survival, which brings innovation. And that is exactly what happened here. That they were fearing that they will be extinct very soon if they don't change. And they changed. They changed in terms of freshness of product, freshness of produce, customer service, bringing it to you, knowing your name, giving you a very, very wonderful array of payment options, online retailing, online ordering, you're remembering your last order. All those kind of things happened because these people knew that they will be extinct. So to me, three factors have made perhaps these retailing people a little bit better or survivable, or there's no doubt, we never had any doubt that these small retailers will be extinct. They thought they will be extinct. But as far as the society and others are concerned, we never had any doubt that they will play a big role. I mean, Hindustan Lever, PNG, or, for that matter, our own Amul, they know exactly what is the value of these small retailers and how they survived, how they made. And nobody will know better than Piyush himself because he has been a brand, champion of that in his own company. So fact of the matter here is these retail stores will stay, but not the way they are, or not the way they want to be, or not the way they feel they can be. If the moment they say that, I can assure you they should start counting their days because better retailers will kill them, never mind mega retailers. So there will be a kind of family war among these retailers themselves. Rather than category war, there will be a family war in which better retailers among these retailers themselves will take over these small retailers who have refused to see the writing on the wall or change, even though they know that they're going to die. I'm very, amused while seeing many movies of Hollywood, and Bollywood is also a part of that, but Hollywood were very, very powerful in terms of imagery when they said that how big stores killed small stores, and one of them was, a wonderful movie called You Got a Mail. And in that, they talked about that how bookshops and all those things are being killed by this chain of bookshops. And bookshops themselves, by the way, we all know, they have been killed by Amazon. That is what I was saying as wheel of retailing, or the wheel of this thing, where one format will kill the previous format because the previous format either has stopped giving that value or has outlived the value or is not changing enough in order to give the new value to I was in California, and I never saw a Walmart in that many counties of California. Of course, they were there in California, but not at all places. So I asked that place where I was at San Luis Obispo, which was next to Santa Barbara, and I asked why there is no Walmart or any of them. They said that local community has decided that there will be no mega retail in their vicinity, in their community. They would like to go only with the mom and pop stores because they want to retain their character. They want to retain their original character. Well, that's a debatable point. What is that original character and how you are providing those particular values? But I can also assure you that even there also people were moving a little bit, traveling a little bit farther distance to go to those Walmarts and others because they were providing values. So the last point I would like to make, and then on that point I will stop, that it is perhaps also important for small retailers to look for organized wholesalers, to organize retailers among their own family, and to embrace these mega retailers in terms of the approaches, practices, attitude, the way they function. They shouldn't see them as enemies of the people. They shouldn't see them as if that they have come here to kill their business, but they should see them as a new format, as a learning value, as an improvement value, and that way they will be doing better. Thank you very much, Mr. Goel.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal. And only I will highlight one point which he has raised. He says customers, earlier we always think the customer is king, but he has coined one new word and he says the customer is wife. You cannot dare to unplease her. So the retailers, whether they are big or they're small, they have to understand that they have to be very, very careful about the attitude, and that is very important. Thank you very much. Paucity of time, so I will not like to take much time to summarize your thing, although you have done. Now my question goes to Professor Sinha. Professor Sinha, right now, just now, he has given, Professor Agarwal has given an example of a Kofu store. I have also seen 36 years back in USA, New Jersey, there was a very, very small shop called Patel's. And their Patel shop, the people used to go there, very small shop. But now, today, the last 2 years back when I went there, I found it's so big. The Patel brothers have become so big, not only in USA, but in other countries like even UK, etc. Don't you think that instead of small retailers will lose their identity, they will also become big during the time if they have to serve the thing? So what you were saying earlier, that the big retailers have to be, they have to take the help of the small kirana shop. But in that way, don't you think the small kirana has to become the big to survive? What you say about that, Professor Sinha?
My take is on this is a little different. Of course, everybody would like to become big. That's the ambition that people have, and Shravan is a good example of that. When you start and you scale up and all that, but not everyone. It is not a cup of tea of everyone to scale up for two reasons. One, it requires a different skill, right? Different way of really looking at the business itself. But more importantly, many of these small stores, they don't want to become big because they are very comfortable doing that business, right? It's a different thing that the next generation of theirs may not come into that business. That's a different thing. But they do not want to go out because if you really look at a small store, and which is established small store, it is simple operations now because they don't have to worry about customers to come in. They don't have to worry about staff. They don't have to worry about this. So it's a very, very, very comfortable state that they are in. So, and when you are in a comfortable stage and you are earning enough to really make the two ends well, right? So unless you are ambition driven, you will not do it. And typically, if you look at it, it's a pyramid, right? Large people are not so ambitious that they're saying we want to go beyond that, right? Plus, you know, the one, and I keep saying this, the biggest enemy of scaling up is not an opportunity, but the owner himself or herself. Because he or she is the one who stops growing. That's about it. And then if you go a little one layer below, peel the onion, you'll find that it is the love of control that they don't want to grow, because they know that if they grow beyond that. So I was talking to somebody and he said, look, at best I can open 5 stores, not beyond that, because in a day I can only visit 5 stores and control it.
Okay.
But that is where Shravan, like people are setting examples, right? And use of technology, use of trained manpower, systems, processes. That's something is what is going to make people think. That is something which is there. But still, my hunch is that 80% will still remain small because they want to remain small.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Sinha. Thank you very much. Now I would like to ask Mr. Shravan. Mr. Shravan, you've mentioned about the customer experience, etc. Although in the COVID time, we have seen the people have stopped going to any bigger shops or bigger retailers. Now also they have a fear. But the main thing which is coming in the mind of the customer, as Professor Sinha mentioned, about 80%, one of the factor is the pricing. When we are talking of niche showrooms, etc., the big things, do you think the pricing also plays a very big role when we are talking of the mega stores? If they are like a Walmart is a success story is the pricing. What do you say about this, Mr. Shravan?
So, Mr. Goel, what I would like to say, for every retail format in India, there is a customer. So, cannibalization cannot happen a level beyond. So, the example which I gave while I was speaking is when in India, Amazon stepped in, Flipkart stepped in, or even today also, when these giants are giving huge discounts on their known days, which are like Flipkart Big Billion or Amazon Prime days, the business hit cannot be beyond a certain X percentage. India, or for any form factor, the touch and feel factor cannot be replaced in retail. Though online buying e-commerce has scaled up, there is a large segment of customer where the behavior is to look and feel the product, to understand the features and then buy it. Pricing definitely plays a role, but yes, with the kind of offerings now the small and medium enterprise retailers have, I think they are well off to compete with the online as a category. Because when I say that, our company also is into the both zones. So when I say it as a omni-commerce, we do have competition coming from big players in the e-commerce which we have, which is the myimaginestore.com portal. We sell pan-India Apple products on the website, also across the stores. So definitely, yes, customer behavior does change while having an online consumer experience or while visiting the store and see that look and feel. But nevertheless, saying that, you still have a lot from the pie. The pie is very big for everybody to sustain.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Shravan. Now my question goes to Professor Mohanlal Agarwal. Mr. Mohanlal Agarwal, Professor Mohanlal Agarwal, you have heard earlier Mr. Shravan mentioned the name called Vijay Sales. And I saw the Vijay Sales growth about 36 or 37 years back, a very, very small shop in Mumbai. And the way they have increased, and today the condition is they dictate to the manufacturers, not the manufacturers or the brand dictate them. You are mentioning all the brands and others are mentioning brand, because and the price cutting, and still people wants to go there and purchase from there instead of going to the Amazon or big thing. What do you say about this? Time is short, so 30 seconds reply.
Thank you. No, very much. But can I answer the previous question also first? That price thing which you mentioned. In my opinion, I'll take 10 seconds. In my opinion, prices are not seen as a factor for buying in urban retailing. It is price perception rather than price, because nobody knows the real prices. So number one, price perception. And number two, very visible services that they provide that make the difference for them rather than the price. Anyway, the second point which you mentioned is that how about, that where people are dictating. I strongly believe that retailers will be able to even provide new directions to the manufacturers and brand companies also, which products to bring and when and where. That's all I will say.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. So, viewers, you have seen today, it's not, there is no fear among there is no competition, you can say, from the big or the retail. Only thing is that the small retailers have to change bit of their attitude. They have to come out with some innovative ideas, and they are going to sustain. They are not going to be wiped out by the big entries like Amazon or Reliance or whosoever, Flipkart, etc. And because the small kirana shops are going to be there, we have seen across the world that they may become big or they may stay small, as Professor Sinha said. But the service which they are providing, they have to just see to it that they will upgrade the technology, and then they will be able to compete with the big one. And the big one has also to see the attitude. They have to see the purchasing attitude of the Indian people, and they have to see that what they want. And we have seen even Amazon, if you order for 100 rupees thing, they will send a separate box for the 100 products. And they are how they, because they want to enter, penetrate India. But still, as Professor Sinha said, they are going to stay. So we need not to worry. We can say they are complementing each other. There is no competition, and both are in a dictating terms. Thank you very much.